Consider the scenario: a town's population has been decreasing at a constant rate. In 2010, the population was 6,100. By 2012, the population had dropped to 5,100. Assuming that this trend continues, we want to be able to identify the year in which the population will reach 0. And we're going to round our answer to the nearest year. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to identify what is the input and then the output. Well, we can see that the input represents the t years since 2010. The output is the population, which is p of t. So since this is a linear situation, we're going to write p of t, which is the population, is going to equal m, the slope, times t, the years since 2010, plus b, which is the y-intercept. So let's first take a look at this point up here. In 2010, the population was 6,100. So that means it starts in 2010. We're going to call that 0. The population is 6,100. Okay, so when x is 0, this tells us that this is the y-intercept, or we can call it b. Now, if we take a look at this next sentence, it says by 2012, the population had dropped to 5,100. So how many years have gone by since 2010? Well, 2012 minus 2010 is going to give us 2. And that population is going to be 5,100. So in our model, we know that the y-intercept b is 6,100. Now we need to figure out what m is, which is the slope. And we can find that by finding the slope between these 2 points. And remember, the formula for the slope is the change in y, which is y2 minus y1, over the change in x, which is x2 minus x1. So let's plug in the value for y2. We can call that 5,100. And then we're going to subtract y1, which is 6,100. And then we're going to divide that by x2, which is 2 minus 0. When we subtract, we get negative 1,000 in the numerator. Divide that by 2 in the denominator, which is going to give us a negative 500 slope, which tells us that the population is decreasing, so therefore we can verify that. So now, in part 3, we can then determine that our model is going to be the following. P of t is going to equal m, which is the slope that we found to be negative 500 t, plus the y-intercept, which is 6,100. Okay, so now the question is asking us to identify the year in which the population will reach 0. So that means that when p of t is equal to 0, we want to find what is that year, or how many years have gone by. So if we take a look at this equation, we get negative 500t plus 6,100, and that's going to equal 0. So if we subtract 6,100 to both sides, we get negative 500t divided by negative 6,100. Okay, now the next step is we need to divide both sides by negative 500. So if we take that value and divide both sides by negative 500, then we get t being approximately 12.2. Now that represents 12.2 years after 2010. So what we need to do is we're going to take 2010 and then we're going to add 12 because we're going to approximate it to be 12. So we're going to let t be approximately 12. So therefore we end up getting 2022 as the year in which the population will reach 0.